God's blessings to everyone. This is a DGHradio.com news and information news update for the Caribbean, and I'm reporter SGD reporting to you the latest developments from across the Caribbean. We begin in Jamaica, where the school system is slowly finding its footing again after Hurricane Melissa. In St. Anne and Trelawney, more schools in Region 3 are reopening this week as repair crews patch roofs, dry out classrooms, and restore power and water. Education officials say the priority is to get students back into stable learning environments while still paying attention to the emotional shock many children and teachers experienced during and after the storm. Point. Nationally, the Caribbean Examinations Council has agreed to stretch Jamaica's exam timetable, giving students more time to catch up on lost teaching hours before sitting high-stakes tests. At the same time, schools like Dinthill Technical High in St. Catherine are pushing ahead with award ceremonies that recognize hundreds of high achievers, sending the message that academic effort still matters even in the middle of recovery. In Western Jamaica, however, the scars of Melissa are still very visible. Communities in St. James and neighboring parishes are counting heavy losses to homes, farms, and local infrastructure, even as one historic bright spot, the recently renovated Withorn Courthouse, escaped major damage. Roads into cut-off districts have now largely been cleared, allowing relief teams to deliver food, water, and tarpaulins. But many farmers are looking at flattened fields of bananas, yams, and vegetables and wondering how they will restart. On top of the physical damage, Jamaica's health ministry has formally declared a leptospirosis outbreak, with confirmed and suspected cases spread across several parishes that saw serious flooding. Hospitals say they have the medicines and staff to manage the surge, but public health officials are urging people to avoid contaminated floodwater, secure food and drinking water, and seek care quickly if they develop fever, muscle pain, or jaundice. Even as government agencies work through their own relief programs, Jamaicans at home and abroad are trying to close the gaps. Faith-based organization Carla Dunbar Ministries has rolled out a new online platform designed to match aid with the communities that need it most. After seeing how some districts receive repeated visits from donors while others are overlooked. The site allows local coordinators to flag specific needs and lets donors track where their contributions are going, with features meant to improve transparency and reduce duplication. Overseas, members of the Heavy Breathers Motorcycle Club in Miami have turned their passion for riding into a major relief drive, collecting and shipping supplies for hard-hit areas of Jamaica. These kinds of grassroots efforts, linked up through digital tools, are becoming an important part of how the region responds to climate-driven disasters, especially when official systems are stretched thin. Crime and public security remain front of mind in Jamaica, even as some indicators finally move in a better direction. New figures from the police show that murders have passed the 600 mark for the year, but that total still represents a sharp drop compared with the same period in 2024. Officials credit targeted anti-gang operations and more gun seizures, including a recent raid in Perrytown, St. Anne, where officers recovered 2 illegal firearms, an air gun, and more than 100 rounds of ammunition while detaining 5 people for questioning. At the same time, Jamaica's police watchdog reports that fatal shootings by the security forces have already surpassed last year's total, raising fresh questions about the tactics being used to drive down violent crime. Individual cases, like the killing of a young man near Port Esquivel in St. Catherine and the arrest of a serving constable accused of taking part in a goat theft ring, show how fragile public trust can be when the same institutions tasked with protecting communities are also under scrutiny themselves. Across the wider Caribbean, gender-based violence is again in the spotlight after a Trinidadian local government councillor, Ramona Victor, and her husband, Rodney Ramsomere, were found dead in their home in what police are investigating as a possible domestic violence-related murder-suicide. The tragedy has shaken the district she represented and prompted calls for more support for families under strain and for public officials who carry heavy community workloads. Point. At the regional level, a new report from the UN's Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean estimates that thousands of women across Latin America and the Caribbean are killed each year in femicides or similar gender-related murders, averaging around 11 women every day over the last reporting period. Advocates say those numbers, which likely undercount the true scale of the problem, are a warning that laws, policing, and social services are still failing to protect women from partners, ex-partners, and others who pose known threats. Regional security and geopolitics are also front and center. In Trinidad and Tobago, concern about a growing United States military footprint in Caribbean waters is being amplified by news that the highest-ranking U.S. military officer is in Port of Spain for talks with the Prime Minister and defense officials. Point: Washington says the focus is on cooperation against drug trafficking and other transnational crime, but tourism leaders and some civic voices worry that a heavy naval presence, high-profile exercises, and tough rhetoric could change how visitors see the region. Those tensions are sharpened by disputes with Venezuela, where a senior official has publicly denied reports that President Nicolas Maduro is considering an early exit from power, insisting his government remains firmly in control. At home in Trinidad, emergency powers remain in effect, and one recent detention order targets a woman accused of posting the Prime Minister's home address online and calling on Venezuela to attack it, an example of how quickly online speech can fall under national security law when regional relations are strained. Economic governance, meanwhile, is getting a shakeup in several territories. In Barbados, the business development minister has promised what she describes as a digital overhaul of the island's regulatory machinery by March 2026, after admitting that the current process to get permits and approvals is ridiculously long. New online platforms and a more coordinated whole-of-government approach are meant to cut red tape for small and medium-sized enterprises and give investors more predictable timelines. At the same time, the Environment Ministry is preparing to fine property owners who ignore notices to clear overgrown lots, arguing that neglected bush poses health risks and undermines community pride. Guyana is signaling a tougher line of its own, announcing an integrated enforcement push against gold smugglers and miners who underdeclare production or damage riverbanks, with the threat of shutting down or repossessing offending concessions. Across the region, CARICOM's Secretary General is again urging governments to treat deeper regional trade and cooperation as part of basic climate resilience, arguing that when one island is hit by a hurricane, neighbors must be able to step in quickly with food, materials, and services. Further north in Puerto Rico, workers and businesses are watching the holiday calendar closely. Public servants have been told they will receive their Christmas bonuses this week, along with extra days off during the November and December holidays, a move the government hopes will boost morale and pump money into the local economy ahead of peak shopping season. In the private sector, employers who truly cannot afford the legally mandated Christmas bonus have only a narrow window to prove it. The Labor Department has reminded companies that they must submit audited financials by December 1st if they want an exemption. Workers' advocates see the deadline as vital to preventing abuse of the exemption clause, while small business owners argue that the paperwork can be burdensome for firms already on the edge. Finally, tonight, a mix of cultural loss and inspiration from Jamaica to the wider world. Fans across the Caribbean are mourning reggae icon Jimmy Cliff, who has died at the age of 81. From early ska and rocksteady recordings to classics like Many Rivers to Cross, and his starring role in The Harder They Come, his work helped carry Jamaican music and stories onto the global stage and opened doors for generations of reggae and dancehall artists who followed. In sports and popular culture, Jamaica's Reggae Girls have named a 21-player squad for their upcoming CONCACAF Women's Qualifier against Dominica in St. Lucia, blending experienced internationals with new faces as they try to build on historic World Cup appearances. And Miss Universe Jamaica, Dr. Gabrielle Henry, is expected to be discharged from hospital soon after a frightening onstage fall at the international pageant. Doctors say scans show no serious injury, and the incident has prompted fresh calls for stronger safety standards at high-pressure live events. Together, these stories underline both the vulnerability and the resilience of Caribbean people in the arts, on the field, and on the global stage. Point. These and other issues are of great concern within the islands. What do you think are some good solutions? Let us know your thoughts by texting your comments to 1-315-89-81449. You can also join our WhatsApp group and get the news, weather, and other insightful information delivered right to your smartphone. To join, text JOIN to 1-315-898-1449. Please include your name in the text message. You will receive a call to verify your request. I'm your reporter, SGD, signing off for DGHradio.com. Remember, SGD and DGH, together we source, gather, and deliver daily global headlines. Because on DGHradio.com, the news never sleeps. Point. Goodbye for now. Ciao.